Hey everyone, this is the Waves All Island Candidate Q&A. My name is Devanya DeVoe.
And I am Nandina Hislop.
And today we have joining us Mr. LeKensay Missick, one of the independent All Island candidates. We're going to be asking Mr. Missick some questions to allow him to expound on his plans should he be elected to represent us in the House of Assembly. So just to get us started, LeKensay, could you just briefly introduce yourself to the public so they can know who you are?
Hey, my name is LeKensay Missick, born and raised in Grand Turk. A primary undergraduate in Miami, Florida at Baylor University. I obtained a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mathematical Science. I own the Math Lab. It's a non-profit establishment which just aim to help kids in STEM-related subjects of science, technology, engineering, and math. And the reason why I did this was try to give them an early start, because I think I got to start late. So I think what I can accomplish with my late start will be a lot to see if we can get kids to start at an earlier age and the things that they can accomplish.
Right. Well, that's really good. And because of all of that, our first question would be, what do you see yourself advocating for most in the House of Assembly if given the opportunity?
Well, gotta be the kids. My first is the kids, and then having them, putting them in a position to be successful. And that's not only educationally, because all kids aren't designed for academia. So we have, I think, to think about that. So I know the government have their trade school in place. I mean, not in place, but going in there. So I appreciate that. I like that. But I also think we have to think about other things too, like the arts and things like that, because a lot of kids love art, music, drama, and things of the sort. So if we only think about those trades, like those kind of trades like plumbing and electrical and barbering and cosmetics, then we miss out a whole group of kids that are capable and things of the sort. I watched a movie one time in August Rush, where I learned about, this Juilliard school, where they do performance arts and things of the sort. I think we need one of those here so badly, so we can help kids get into more arts and being able to do performances, like on-screen performance. Everybody knows Tyler Perry here. Tyler Perry started inside one little building, one little room doing those plays and things, and then the guy's a billionaire at this moment. So if we could get our kids, introduce them to those kind of things where they can learn how to ballet and dance and music and engineering and stuff like that, then it'll put us in an environment where all our kids can be as successful as they would like to be, instead of putting them in a situation where they can't be successful because they don't understand the academia,
Right.
And for us to be successful, we have to meet kids where they are. We can't tell them come to us, we have to meet them where they are. So if we can have those kind of conversations, so we can see exactly what these kids want to be and what you want to do, so we can put these things. So even the trade school is still like throwing something down their throat, because a lot of kids still are not going to gravitate towards that, So if we can get other kids introduce them to other things, that's all I want to see. I wrote STEM at institutions where we focus on technology and engineering and science and things of the sort. I want a medical school here so bad, and a research facility, so bad, because there's a lot of things that's going on that a research facility can hone in on. Like, we got people suffering from kind of health issues, cancer and things like that. And we could introduce a research facility where people can come here and do research, use our facilities to do research. It'll add value to us for sure.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you mentioned all of that, because we had so many of those points to bring up. So I wanted to ask you next of any ideas that you have to improve the education system in Turks. So I guess you can kind of continue on from the things you mentioned on how we can improve.
We could definitely improve the education system. And first we have to start off, we need specialized teachers badly, because we need teachers to be able to identify the learning needs of individual kids. We need teachers to understand individualism. Kids, every kid learn differently. They got different types of learning. People learn visually, people learn auditory, people learn kinesthetically. So we have to understand those things and always have an environment where children can succeed. Even if it's creating different learning methods for individual students, then that's what we have to do. Remember, if you went in college or like some schools, I don't know if they do it here, you have kids like teachers, assistants, and things of the sort, because they understand the work, and then so they can go and help other kids who's not so good in the work. So, and then with kids, we're funny, and that's why they say our education is like a socio-cultural thing also. Because if I'm a lecturer and I try to explain something to a student, that student may not get what I'm trying to explain to him. But then if it's peer, come and explain it to him, then he get it just like that. So we have to create an environment where the kids who are performing well in the class can actually assist other kids. So they take a lot of strain off of the teachers, so the teachers can actually do other things. So we have to create an environment where teachers can actually identify that and be open to that,
Okay, so do you have any sort of plans in how you in government would be able to implement something like that?
We have a lot of locals here who are qualified, so we have to give them incentive. We got to incentivize the qualified per person. Because a lot like me, I would have never thought to go teach in school or anything like that. But then I'm educated. I have a degree in mathematical science, probably the only person in Taxation Island with it, I'm not sure. But imagine I have this degree and then I continue working for government or continue working somewhere else where I'm just letting my skill pass and not passing it on to the next person. So I think we have to speak with individuals who are qualified and make them understand the importance of them disseminating knowledge, because too much is given, too much is required. So if you gain so much knowledge, you're obligated to share that with others. Whatever environment you feel comfortable doing that, then that's who should do that. But if we can get those persons and introduce them to the kids can have specialized teachers, they can get in-depth knowledge of a certain topic. I think that will help kids, and it will help the lecturer also, because we learn 90% of the things that we teach. So if we teach something, we gain a better understanding of it also. So if we can put qualified locals in that, I hate the fact of importation of labor anyway. So the fact that we got persons who can do the job and who can go in the classroom and teach these kids differently. Because when we import labor, we have a language barrier that we have to contend with. So when we got that mixed with all the other things where the kids find it hard to comprehend what's going on, mixed with the language that is being spoken, it is very hard for kids to comprehend, and it discourages them, it demotivates them. So if the kid is not motivated, then it's going to be hard for the kid to be successful, because he has to want to do the work. So we can create an environment, and that environment can be created because locals can relate. It's hard for foreigners to come and say when you go and look in the class. Change that. I think if we get persons like that, I relish in the fact that I was now lectured at the community college, because now I can actually do what it is I was supposed to be doing. Because I've been running away from it for years and years and years. But here I am now. Like I said, I own a math lab, but I help tutor kids and prepare them for the maths and other sciences. Currently lecture at the community college, and I think it takes more persons like myself who's able to do that, to put themselves in that place. They got the training programs that they can learn how to actually teach in the classroom. And as long as you have a bachelor's degree, you have the capacity to learn. So learning how to deliver information is not hard, because for you to get educated, you had to acquire it. So we know what type of environments that we like to learn in. So we know what type of environments that we can create for the student that make learning makes learning enjoyable for them.
Right. Well done to you, first of all, for your degree and your math lab. But you spoke about the teachers being incentivized. What would you say can be done, in your opinion, to then promote students to further themselves either academically or vocationally?
with a specialized teacher like myself, so like math, right? A lot of kids despise math, like they hate it, like really hate it. They say hate is a bad word, but the children hate math. So if, like for me, like I don't, like my incentive is just seeing the person, that student successful. So incentivizing them depends on the individual itself also. But for me, my incentive is being able to see that child successful. So putting them in an environment, creating an environment where we pay more attention to them and giving them, because what a lot of teachers do, a lot of teachers think we just keep on talking and talking to students and talking to students and think that's how learning happens. That's the traditional way of teaching. That learning doesn't happen like that, because the attention span decreases as time goes by. So we have to have teachers who can actually pay attention to that, because as long as the kid loses interest in his learning, he's gone. So we have to, like I said, because there are different different methods of learning, we have to take into account all the kids inside of the classroom. So we have to figure like, okay, you guys learn a certain way, so we have to incorporate as many different learning methods as possible, because we want all our kids to be successful.
Right. You do make a lot of sense there. But now after, say, high school and primary level education, what about tertiary? How do we promote or support students who want to further themselves?
And that's where being able to identify those students in secondary school, because like I said, every student wouldn't want to go to tertiary level.
Right.
Every students feel like, okay, after high school, I've had enough. Because they probably got by high school, or some was willing to drop out of high school. So it's not every kid is want to go to the academic, to tertiary school. So we have to be able to identify those kids. We could be like, okay, maybe you don't need to be doing this here. Maybe we should transfer you to the trade school, or we can send you to the arts and theater institution so you can develop your skills there, because you may not be able to be successful here in academia, meaning going to a tertiary level, but you can be successful over there. So we don't equate education with the level of education, meaning tertiary or secondary. It's knowledge, So now, once you gain certain knowledge and certain experiences, then you can make educated decisions. So it doesn't matter tertiary school, secondary school, it's rather creating institutions where knowledge is disseminated to these kids, because that's what makes them successful. I didn't have to go to a tertiary school to gain whatever knowledge. I know persons who probably never went to college, who are probably more smarter than I am. So I can't tell them they not smart because I go into a college to get a degree they didn't.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of things we have to take into consideration. So we don't have to create that environment where all students must go tertiary school. No, that's going out of days, because a lot of our parents put that on us, and that's why a lot of kids fail, because the pressure that is placed on them by society and their parents. Society put it on their parents, and then the parents pass it down to us, and it goes from generation to generation. And this, of course, is a problem. So we force on kids in an environment that they cannot excel in. So now we got to be able to identify those kids and be like, okay, what can we do for you guys, So that's the reason why a lot of kids drop out of the education process, because they know I can't go on any further, and then the more I go on, the worse I do in my grades, and then that makes me feel a certain way. I feel like I can't accomplish things, so now I demotivated. Now I go out, I feel like I can't be who I think I'm supposed to be, because you put in this work in front of me and I'm not able to do that. But then if you'd have put that person in a different environment, that person would have been excelling quite well. So this is the kind of things we have to think about. That tertiary school is good, but it depends on what the child is trying to accomplish. We have to identify what the child wants and not what we want for the child. Right. We can have a child try to teach them, and be wondering why this child can't perform and do a certain activity that we know he's supposed to do. But he won't do it because that is not what he wants to be. That is not what he wants to do. So if we keep on forcing them, that's the reason why they won't be able to make it to community college or university, because they don't want that. There's going to be a selective few who want that, because got kids who want to be doctors and lawyers and things of the sort. Like those things you got to go to school for. You have to go to school to be, and you can be a freelancer and just acquire knowledge on the job. So there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration, especially like with those. watching that person, like, that kid go sit right next to all that drum machine and all those things, and you see that kid doing it, be like, oh, I've been wasting your time in the school all along. You're not supposed to be in the school. You're supposed to be in a studio somewhere. And just the kind of things we have to identify with our kids and stop putting pressure on them to think that they gotta go and be doctors and look.
Your audio cut out a bit there, but we mainly got everything that you were saying. Very insightful points. As you were saying about, people not really needing or wanting to go all the way to tertiary level and maybe having different career endeavors interested in. All work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. So we're moving into enrichment opportunities and cultural preservation. So here at Waves Magazine, our slogan is proving TCI creativity and culture is not dead, right? So our question to you, LeKensay, is, do you think the Turks' creativity and culture is dead?
Oh boy, to an extent, because you still got, and it depends on, that question depends on the age group that you speak of, because the younger age persons wouldn't know anything about the culture, because we've got so many different nationalities here that embedded their culture with ours. It's hard to identify ours. So you find older persons speaking of the culture, and I think in this we got to make a complete shift. We got to create an environment where these kids can learn with the culture, so it can be embedded in them. What we try to do is teach kids culture, make them care about culture, and teach them culture maybe inside their secondary school sort of thing, or things like that. But true culture is supposed to be disseminated to kids in their sensory motor or their pre-operational stage. That's from birth to 11 years old, because that's when kids absorb most of the information. And once let's say, teach a kid, something when they're young, and you go with them for the rest of their life. So we have to impose these things on kids sort of from an early age. We could implement different cultural courses inside our primary schools, and then the creation of an art and theater institution allows them to take that culture further. So that's where you reach grade 6. You don't want to go to a traditional high school. Okay, let's go to the arts and theater institution where we can grow in our culture, and then when we write our music, you see our culture is embedded in the music. When we do our screenplays, we see our culture embedded in the screenplays. So when people doing their performances and things, then you see different things like. So once we create that from young, it carries with them. So everything they do, our culture will be embedded in it. So to answer your question, to the extent of the kids, maybe primary school, and they don't really know what our culture is. I would say, I grew up in the 90s, so it was different for me compared to these kids growing up now. These kids kind of in the time, these kids got laptops, tablets, and all kind of PlayStation 5 and things. What's culture? They ain't care about no culture. So we have to make them care, and only way we can make them care is sharing that information with them from an early age. So now as they grow, it grows with them, and now that's how we create patriotic citizens.
So your idea of creating a patriotic citizen, so someone who really lives and breathes the culture of the TCI, is to introduce that in the early stages. But do you think that it's ever too late? And even if someone who's now, as you say now, it might be too far gone for some, would you say that there's things that can be done, such as events? What tangible things can be done to bring that back?
We can put on shows and all these kind of things, cultural shows and things like that, but people only gravitate towards that because that's a social event. It's not because it's embedded in them and they want to be a part of the culture of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Okay, we just want to be a part of the socializer that put us in a position where we can be with our friends and socialize. So we got to know why people doing the things that they do. So if we have older persons who want to learn what the culture is, because you might have persons my age who don't know what the culture is. And you might have foreigners who come in who want to learn our culture. So the possibility of teaching them that it can happen. but we just have to create that environment in an art and theater institution where cultural courses can be taught. It puts them in a position to go, okay, I could go do a 3-week course or learn certain culture or learn certain things or do a little basket weaving or do a little something or something that like we can teach those things. And as we teach those things, there's stories that are being told at the same time. So we're learning the history while we're doing the same thing. So it can be done, but we have to create that environment. So we can talk, but we have to facilitate that. And we do a lot of talking, but we're not seeing anything after the conversation. We're having a conversation, like everybody having a conversation, but what happens next? Nothing happens next. So for us to really create that kind of environment, we gotta be more active in the things that we say. Because I can say a whole lot, but then if I don't have any action behind it, then talk a lot racket. So I mean, it's what we want to accomplish. So we really want to accomplish sharing our culture with these other countries persons who come in from other countries, then this is what we're supposed to do. We have to create an environment to facilitate that. We cannot do that by just chilling with my friend and having a conversation, because it's not going to be a cultural conversation. We're going to talk about things that are going on personally with our lives, or the topic of the day, especially at this kind of time where politics seem to rule everything now. All the conversations are going to be about the politics, and nobody having them kind of conversation about the things that really matter. So for us to do that, we have to create environments for that. I appreciate the new director of culture. Oh man, I appreciate that lady so much. Ladrina Fulford, she was wasting her time at Scotiabank. I'm so happy she going to culture, because now we see certain things happening that should have been happening a whole years ago. And this what happens when you put young people inside those kind of environments who have a different vision. Say it to say we got older persons, they got sight, but they ain't got vision. Say it to say. So now we need to, that's why having these younger folks who don't travel and understand how these other countries embedded their culture in different things, they come back and now they say, that's how we can formulate something to embed our culture in different activities. So these type of things we have to do, create different activities and different things for kids to be or even adults to gravitate towards, to be I could do a weekend class with basket weaving, I could do a weekend class or making chains and things out of shells and stuff like that, or whatever they feel necessary to have kids feel we're participating in something that came from us,
You touched a bit on this. I just want to get more information on that. So the future for the arts in Turks and Caicos, or just future of the arts of the people. What, if you have any, what are your plans, or if you have any plans to support the future of the arts? So things
like I said, I believe the next school, the Juilliard School, should be located in Grand Park, because in Grand Park it's enriched with culture, the Turks and Caicos. So I think we need a real institution that teach arts and theater and things of the sort, because kids can do so much. And like I said, there's music, there's drama, there's on stage plays and all these kind of things. So when those things happen, we can have performances every year. We have an institution like that. We can have a concert every year, and the concert will be focused on culture because it's embedded in all the courses that are being taught at the institution. So you never have a situation where you have performance and the arts, they're doing arts, where they're doing their drawing, or where they're creating their music, or they're playing sort of music, because even the ripsaw band, there's technology that exists that we can hook these ripsaw bands up and we can create the sound, and that we can embed it inside. We could be playing it on guitar or keyboard or saxophone, or whatever the case may be. So we got a whole lot of things that we can introduce within the Art Institute, but we just have to want to do it. And that way, art will definitely, our culture will last, and then we create something new. Because at this point, we don't see anybody participating in art per se. We see some people, they're doing tasks and stuff. I appreciate tasks for, doing her music and things like that. other persons like Kenzie, who's doing little shows and things like that. Like this, the kind of things that we gotta promote, because it may seem small now, but as it grows, if people pay attention to it, this is the only way that the arts want to develop. And that people have to really, really trust the process, because we may think, okay, that wouldn't be successful, but it won't be successful if we don't support it or we don't help to get it where we think it's supposed to be. So if we can create an environment where these persons can get in the institution and be taught how to be producers or be movie directors or things like that, or playwrights or on-screen designers, things like that. If we can create that arts, we can create new art while ensuring that our culture lives on forever.
So this vision for this art school would not just encompass performing arts learning, would also include things like music engineering, artistry.
Yes. From a broad perspective, photography, the guy making pottery and all these things, real art. Like we're not thinking one-sided, because that can help us, diversify. We can't diversify the sort of things, because we are a service-driven nation. If we focus on arts and things like that, then we become a product-driven nation, because persons can start designing certain things and making money from those things just by you go to school, you learn how to do certain things. Like when I went to university, I could have taken up like pottery and photography and things, but I decided to do music. I learned how to play piano in university, so it's those kind of things got to be available to kids so they can decide, okay, maybe I don't want to be an engineer, maybe I want to be a musician, but it has to be available to me. And then if we do those things, if we facilitate that, then the arts can grow and we can flourish. But we gotta be willing to introduce those kind of things to our students and even to the grown folks, because we got people who work in a day job right now and they hate the job they're working, but they got a gift inside of them that may be pertaining to the arts that they hide in, but then there's nothing to facilitate that, so they can be stuck in that job because there's nothing that can be able to hone in on that gift and then make them enhance it. So we have to create an environment where persons can identify their gifts, especially in arts and things of the sort, so we can put them in a position for them to flourish.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate the amount of things that you touched on in that answer and all the different arts that you actually mentioned. Good, bro. But now we want to kind of move on to something completely different. This is a topic that has been talked about a lot recently in campaigns and in the public, on social media. We just want to know from you, what is your opinion on e-government? Do you support e-government or not?
Only e-government I want to see is the effective and efficient one. That's it. That's the only good thing about e-government. You hear people say, "Oh, no more lines." Like that's the last thing to think about. So when we think about e-government, there's a lot of things that encompass that. There's infrastructure, security, and all these things. And when you say you moving out the line, you move out the line, but the wait time still exists, because when you go on the computer, you use technology. The human element still have to verify the information that you input inside the computer. All right, look at the stimulus situation. When I did the stimulus, we applied for the stimulus through technology, but it still had to be verified by a human element. So it still was prolonged. So e-government doesn't fix our problem, e-government adds something to the process. So if we have persons who still doesn't want to do what they're supposed to do behind the computer, the process still is a lengthy one. So we have to fix the human element. The human resource is the main issue. And this we have to think about. And now when we introduce e-government, then we making somebody else's job obsolete. So now we create unemployment. So now when the government, we have to think about how we're going to find work for those other people to do. Somebody say, okay, put those persons aside when other governments in office to let them do this, then they're going to be inefficient at that other government office. So we make less work for one person, but we create more work for another. So when we send the next person to another department, then that department becomes inefficient. So we can't just think e-government is going to fix the problem. E-government is not going to fix the problem. We have to train our frontline workers and everybody else to give them the right resources that they need. And some of the managers and things, they have to listen to their frontline workers, because these frontline workers got a lot of ideas to make the process for the customer a whole lot easier. But because these older folks so stuck in their traditional ways, they don't believe in modernization. And when we say modernization, we can slowly add sort of internet services. Like, what we have to think about, if we want to make a payment to the treasury or something like that, we have to think about the security, the infrastructure of the security, and the recurring cost that it's going to impose. Like, people don't understand that. Like, you don't want to input your information and then you got to worry about a hacker taking the information. All these things got to be thought of, and that's the reason why everybody's, when you want to pay the government tell you, send it to my First Caribbean account or my Scotia account, because the government's smart, the government's shipping their cost. These banks are big organizations. They're paying for their security. So the government don't have to worry about that security mechanism. If somebody takes your card and use your card, you can call the bank, and the bank is supposed to have insurance for your funds if they can prove that it's not you who's using it. But for the government to do that, the amount of money that the government is going to have to pay to do that, then we're going to say, okay, the government increase this and increase that, taxes here, taxes there, because there have to be some way to pay for these things, for this infrastructure. So now, the jobs to design the infrastructure ain't gonna go to no local, because we ain't training our kids to be software engineers and things of the sort. We gotta go buy security from another country. When we did the stimulus, they use a Russian. I don't want a Russian knowing my information. I don't want that. So we have this kind of things we gotta think about. When we go e-government, like these governments the people who campaign, and they thinking just, okay, we're gonna eliminate the lines for our citizens or our voters. No, we can't just eliminate lines. There's another way to eliminate lines, by having your human resource more efficient, by training them and giving them the resources that they need. Half of the times, the internet giving them problems. You saw what down, or this year, sick task giving problems, smart screen giving problem. If the systems that we already have giving us problem, when we go e-government, then that creates a bigger problem. So you still gonna have persons who have to physically go inside the treasury, or physically go by road safety and things of the sort. What we need is we need to centralize certain information. If I go to one government department and give you something once, every government department should be able to access that. That don't have to be, I ain't gotta carry my passport by revenue, and then gotta carry my passport again by road safety. Those things should be inside the system already. So when I go there, it makes the process more easier. We complain because the process is hard. As customers, as long as you make the process hard for me, I'm gonna complain. And there's no way I'm supposed to go through all this trouble to pay you. So we don't have to say go e-government. We could just make the process a whole lot easier by qualifying the persons who offer the service. And I think that's what it is. We just need to make our human resource a whole lot stronger. Just by, like I say, offering training, and management have to listen to to what the frontline of persons have to say. Because as I work frontline, so I know I worked in the bank, and I worked in the revenue department inside the business license section for about a year. So, and when they teach us in the bank, like, you gotta know your customer. So in order to know your customer, you gotta know what the bank got to sell. You have to know everything about the bank to be able to identify that customer, to be able to know what product you're gonna sell this customer. So it's the same thing in every government office. You have to know everything about that department and what's best, so you can suggest certain things. So the process doesn't have to be that hard. Once you put that inside if you go e-government, you go fill out your applications and things, you might be putting in information, that information might be inaccurate. So now they're holding up your application, and you don't know why your application held up. But now if you have gone face-to-face with a customer service rep, that customer service rep could tell you exactly what the problem was, and you can rectify that right there and then. So now your application doesn't have to be held up in the system. So there's pros and cons to everything. So now we don't have to create something just to say, well, human resources inefficient and or ineffective. Because we're telling our people something else. Because now when you go to e-government, you're taking my job from me now. What are you gonna do now? So now I gotta go try to find a job somewhere else, or you can put me somewhere else. You make me think that, okay, I won't work here. You won't train me to work here. You won't give me the resources that I need to work here. But now you can put me somewhere else because you say I wasn't doing the job effectively. So what makes you think I can go inside this next position and do the job effectively? It's going to be hard, and just it's create an environment where people are not going to want to do the job that they're supposed to do. And it's hard to blame them when management don't create the environment for them to, as frontline workers, to be successful.
Right. And I actually see how that can connect to the STEM that you brought up earlier, but I actually want to move on now to another topic. And I've seen that you posted some videos and you mentioned things like how Turks and Caicos is a one industry country, which we all know, and that industry being tourism. And you also mentioned it earlier. So I want to know along those lines, how do you feel about economic diversification for Turks and Caicos?
For Turks and Caicos to be the movers and shakers in the Turks and Caicos, we have to create an industry that we can own. Like I said, so we already, like I said, and I posted this on Facebook one time, we already lost those things. The number one industry is already owned by expatriates, foreigners. So now, before these expatriates and foreigners, the lobbyists go to our government and be like, okay, I want to do this. We have to create this and make it only for Turks and Caicos Islanders, not no belong, personally that belong on status, because you acquiring status don't mean nothing. You buy that basically. So if we can create that kind of environment, okay, you gotta be an indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander or an offspring of an indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander, and be like, okay, we can put agriculture, we can do agriculture from a broad perspective, we can do livestock. I mean, I got friends in Grand Talk right now. If you tell them you want beef and you show them a cow, you got beef right now. You know what I mean? So we can create, we don't have to be importing all these things. Another guy that you watch videos of Grand Talk, you see one guy with shepherd, my boy, grass, goats all over the place. So it's not like we can't do it. Imagine if that guy open up, a farm and start selling goat meat. We ain't gotta be importing that no more. And now anybody who want imported, we increase the tax on them to make sure that they only purchase from our local vendor. So now we do the same thing with other things. We can grow fruits and things. This is Turks and Caicos Islanders, we got some all day, every day. We can grow things all year round, so we don't have to be subjected to all these other things. So we gotta keep on importing. The reason why our government failed, I think our government failed to do this because they inside these people's pocket, these lobbyists, incentivizing them for creating the avenue for them to be successful. I love IGA. But I prefer IGA to make purchases from radio, and they do, and I appreciate that. But then we have to create an environment where more persons can produce things to fill the demand, because that's the most important thing for IGA. We have to be able to supply the demand, and we don't have the supply here, so we have to create that supply. Whatever it is, when you walk in the store, whatever it is, we think we got to like lettuce and tomatoes and these kind of things, we could grow those. I think we got to allocate different zones for different sort of things, for different sort of produce or different sort of livestock. Or like I said, we got other things that because we don't teach our kids certain trades from young, like imagine a child wanted to be a carpenter. He could have been doing carpentry in school, to the point where now he could have been making his own furniture. Like, look up, Obadiah Joseph. I used to watch that dude fixing his stuff on Facebook and things. I'd be like, man, this dude business inside when school teaching kids how to, build their own dresses and things like that. They could be selling their own things now. You know what I mean? They got, another dude like, guys who doing all sorts of things. Like this the people we gotta identify and have conversations with. Like, how do you feel going inside one classroom and teaching a kid how to build a table or build an armoire for somebody's room or something? These people ain't gotta be important these things. We got people could do that right here. But they're not given the chance. They don't want us to be empowered, because when we get the power, the lobbyists don't have no voice. And this is the issue that we have to fix. We gotta be the voice. So that's why we gotta gain the power. So if we wanna gain the power, we gotta be in a position so we can create these things. So the importation of these things doesn't have to exist. I mean, it's gonna exist because you're gonna find people and be like, okay, I still ain't buying from you. But this is where the government coming, okay, you don't want to buy from him? You can put an extra 50% increased tax at the border to make you buy from him. You know, we gotta deter, and we gotta deter them from doing certain things so they can shift back to what we want them to do. Certain laws aren't meant to be used on persons. It's meant to deter you from doing certain things so you don't have to be under the law. So this is what we have to do. So if we can create that environment where people can start producing certain products and things for that, manufacturing certain products, then that's how we can be able to, all our practices will be done in-house. So we can, it's easy to diversify our economy. Like we talk like the Invest TCI, we limit our people. We can tell them, you only could get one loan or one grant if you do this or if you do that. We can't diversify economy if you limit it to people or what they want to do, because I may have something planned that I want to do that I know can be successful, and it's a product that we can sell and grow. But you can tell me I can't do it because it ain't in line with your mandate. We limiting us, and that's us limiting what we want to do. So our product is limited, our materials are limited. Why? Because they telling us what to do. You know, and even to like the same education system, they got a require this, you gotta go do this course, or you gotta go do that course. You limited, like people don't want to do that, and that's the reason why. Another reason why persons wouldn't want to go to a tertiary school, because you're telling them what they have to do. Like, don't tell me what I have to do. Let me find my gift within me and let me build on that, and I can create whatever it is I think I want to create and share with the world. And this is what we need to do, and that's how we got to diversify our economy, by allowing kids at an early age to grow in their gifts. And if we do that, they can do certain things and create new things.
You made some really great points about making sure foreign investors or people who want to work who are non-belongers use and utilize things that are in the country already by deterrent factors. But I just wanted to get a bit more information on the point that you made about indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders. What standardized procedure would we be able to use to constitute what is an indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander? And what is the thought process behind making sure only indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders, non-belongers, get these fixtures?
The reason why I got an American son, right? Born in America, I'm from Turks and Caicos, right? He can't tell him he need a green card because he's an American, born American. So now, for me, I'm an indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander by like 5 generations, right? So because we don't feel like, because we can't identify who indigenous persons are, incentive goes to everybody who got a belonging card. So if we create certain industries for only indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders, because we can identify them, because we register our birth deaths, who mommy born there, who daddy born there, who we know all these things. So if we can create something like a national ID to identify them, like how Americans got a social security, and you punch that in, you got all the person's vital, so you know vital statistics, so you know this is an indigenous American or this is American. If we can do that, and all the concessions at this point going to foreigners. So if we can identify that and put those or if we can be sure that our concessions at the border are given to indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders, because if we don't, we're gonna find that expatriates coming and getting involved in these same industries that are not present at the moment, and then they're gonna be the ones who's gonna get the concessions for it. Like we see with the villas and the hotels together and all these breaks and things like that. So if they're getting it, they already won. They won that fight. We ain't fighting that fight no more because we can lose that. We have to create something. When we create this, so we can identify, okay, if you're not an indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander, you can't do certain things. Like, for me, like, I don't think you're supposed to be able to come, if you're a foreigner, you're supposed to come here and own no land. Why you own a land in my country? I don't feel like you're supposed to own land. You know, if you want to purchase land, you gotta purchase that with an indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander, so that way the indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander remain empowered. Because if we don't go a route such as, we can lose everything, because our governments, we sell everything. Everything we sell, they probably sold their soul already. You know, so if we don't save something now and say that, okay, we gotta identify, we probably only got like 5,000 or less indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders, real indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders.
So based on your explanation, you would need to have a certain amount of years of birth, ancestors.
No years. I don't care if you was here, you come here on a plane, 100 years you reside in Turks and Caicos Island, that don't make you indigenous.
So how many lines of generations would there need?
It gotta be at least 3, at least minimum 3. Okay. Because that way we ensure that the real Turks and Caicos Islanders get their due. And if we don't do that, we can lose everything. We're already almost there. So now we gotta save what we can save for the persons who belong. Everybody don't belong. So everybody can pack up and go. They can say they ain't going. They say that, but they ain't going, but their money going. And that's the problem. So we gotta create industries where we show our money remaining here. Because we got millions and billions of dollars supposed to leave our country monthly, annually, and that is crazy. So if we want to ensure that the money stays here, everything that we create have to be prioritized for indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders, because we know they can live and die and lose, win and lose right here in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Thank you for clarifying the standardized way that we could, explain that.
All right. And so based on your answer, the indigenous Turks and Caicos Islander answer, and the other things that you were saying earlier, it seems like you are passionate about agriculture being one way that we can diversify, since that's the original question. You mentioned agriculture heavily being a way that we can diversify our economy. Is there any other way that you think we can diversify?
We got manufacturing, and then we got other things that we can do with because we're so. First thing we can think about is agriculture, because first thing we can think about is our food, being able to feed the Turks and Caicos Islanders. We have to think about that. But then there's other services that Turks and Caicos Islanders want to do. Look at when the country was shut down. You see all kind of people doing all kind of different things in their spare time, and they're realizing exactly what their gifts truly are. Look at the guy from South Caicos. He's a cop. Look. That guy, he was walking somewhere. He decided to start selling food, making food. I tried food, man. The food is good. You know what I mean? I tell you, the food good. Why you wasn't do this long time? But at the end of the day, you can't go out and make mistakes. Trial and error. You tried it out, you failed. Now I can show you what I really had designed for you. I had that design for you. You walking at the other country, the other company. You working for somebody else. Go create your own. Now you create your own. Now you realize, right, this is what I had planned for you all along. So now if this is the thing, we have to be true to ourselves. A lot of persons not being true to themselves. Because if we be true to ourselves, then we will be able to create the things that we need, because we know what the Turks and Caicos Islanders need. We got people doing all kind of things, like we got embroidery companies being created. We got other people designing pottery and designing it and putting on nice things on it. It took COVID to come do these kind of things, but that's what we needed to happen for us to see that we don't need the outside wall for us to be successful. They lock us off on the outside wall. There's a lot of people hurt, but the majority of the people who hurt, sadly, there was expatriates. It was foreigners, because the hospitality industry is 90%, 80 to 90% foreigners. So sad, but I feel no kind of way about that, because you could have gone home. So at the end of the day, that's fine. But if we want to create the things that we want to create, we gotta be, like I said, we have to be true to ourselves, and we gotta follow our dreams. Because you ask a kid, what's the most important thing? That kid might say education, because that's what his parents told him to think. But then that kid, if you really and truly like, I don't think education is the most important thing, and I'm educated. I think being able to identify what my gift is and being able to develop that gift and be able to share that gift with the world is the most important thing. Because if I know my gift is to be a pilot, in order for me to be a pilot, I know I gotta learn maths and physics and things like that. So if I be true to my gift, I can learn, I can get educated, because I know in order for me to enhance my gift, I gotta do that. If I want to be a carpenter, like, in order for me to be a carpenter, I gotta go do technical drawing and woodwork and maths and things, because I gotta make sure when I cut that wood, I gotta cut it right. Because I don't want to cut it 5 and 6 times, I gotta cut that right. So I know I gotta go do maths and be able to measure and be able to do my conversion tables and things of the sort. So if we make these kids understand what their gift is the most important thing, they can go get educated to make sure that their gift is seen. And once their gift is seen, and that's how we can be able to share different things, because everybody is unique. No two persons are the same. So we may think we may end up doing the same thing, but not because we are the same individual. So if we be true to ourselves, that's when we see the creation of new things. We're seeing the same old things because we're not being true to ourselves. We're being led by probably sight or manipulation or our parents or things of the sort. So if we be true to ourselves and tell our parents, yo, you live your life, let me live mine. Only thing I want you to do is be there for me for when I fall. That's what these parents gotta do. Don't try to live your life and live my life too. You can't do that, because now you trying to make me give this world what you try to give the world. But then what I supposed to do? So allow me to be true to my cause, because the world need what I got. Find that within myself, and that's how we can create a diversification, because we're not the with this person, or I go in that person, or I go in that person. Our uniqueness develops choice.
Just going off of one of your campaign points, I found it very interesting. Taxation. What would that look like, and how would it work for Turks and Caicos?
First, like I said, we got companies making billions of dollars on tax. That is ridiculous. There's no country in the world allows you to make $1 billion annually and we're not putting no tax on them. As it currently stands, the corporations don't pay tax. Tourists pay the tax. When a tax is charged, it is, like I said, like I wrote something like a couple of months back. If a room charge is $100 and they put a 12% government tax, a 10% service charge, and a 5% facility tax, they're gonna be added on to that $100. They're gonna be added on to that $100. So now the government can get their money. I mean, the employees still ain't getting the 100% service charge, the 10%. The corporation can get a 5% facility fee, and they can still make their $100 because they ain't paying the tax. So now for me, and that's why they generated so much revenue when they're hospitals, smaller man being generated none. So now to eliminate that big gap in wealth, we gotta start charging these people about tax. And when they try to hide their money in a trust fund and all these things, we coming for all the assets. We taxing everything you got, because you're gonna be riding around here making all this money and riding these big vehicles. You got 3-4 vehicles, 2-3 houses and a villa, and you won't pay no taxes. No man, we can't do that. You gotta be crazy, you know? And then another thing, like I believe in a lot of persons, we look for incentives from the government. Like I say, I live in America when I was for like 6 years. I believe, and you know, every American always is waiting for April to come because they really for that tax. Like that's what I believe. Like I believe in charging you income tax, but I believe also in giving you tax credits and things of the sort. So, and this will encourage people to do certain things. Because if you're working and you're going to school, yes, I charge you income tax, but then the money you pay for tuition, that's not taxable. You know what I mean? So if you're the teacher and you're teaching your class and the government can't give you no money, they ain't giving you the resources in your classroom, you reach your hand in your pocket and go buy. You know, we always talk about our population in Turks and Caicos Islanders ain't have no kids. You want Turks and Caicos Islanders to have kids? Give them an incentive. You have a kid, we charge you an income tax, we charge you tax. You have a kid, we give you a tax credit that is refundable for your children. So now we incentivize you for having kids. All our persons make up their mind they can travel to America to have their children, not because they want that. At the end of the day, they can find somebody to file for their child in April and they can get a tax refund for their tax credit for their kid. You got children, persons going to America and they get all kind of incentives, like Social Security, they get an incentive. So now we got to think about, okay, if you go in America to have a child to get these incentives, why can't I offer you these things so to make you have these things here? The reason why America don't mind you coming to America and having a child, because every time you have a child, every child you have, they responsible for the United States debt. So if I'm a Turks and Caicos Islander, you go have a child in America, he's responsible for American debt, he ain't got an obligation here. You could have a child here living for all these years, but when that child turns 18, if Uncle Sam say, yo, like coming for him, he gotta go to the Army, Navy, Air Force, he gotta go, or you gotta pay Uncle Sam back his money. So now we gotta do the same thing. Now we can charge you tax because we gotta offer you different social programs. We can't offer certain programs because something gotta pay for it. You know? So this is the kind of things that we gotta do. The government won't do certain things because that's the reason why the lobbyists could dictate, because they know they're responsible for like 80 to 90% of the GDP. So how you can tell this dude who's bringing you all this money that I can't give you this, I can't give you that, and this dude putting all millions of dollars inside the government revenue every year. He ain't putting it there out of his own money. He's an agent collecting tax from the visitor and transferring it to the government. But they feel like they're doing something. All tax that is imposed on them, they ship. So now we have to make sure that the tax that we impose, they can't ship it. So now when we impose these taxes and we start charging these things, now we can get the children and women and kids and old people the real attention that they need and offer them sort of programs. You know, like a lot of people talk about pension and things like that. Like I believe in government as a business. Like, I use a business. If you work, if you're efficient and you're doing your job, and we making money as a government, man, I believe in profit sharing. Now, you make a certain amount of money for me, because like when we sell a business license, that's money in the government revenue. So if you as an individual sell 100 business license, you should be incentivized for that. We make so much money, we give you something for that. Now, in regard to the pensions and things, like a pension is like, I believe in defined contribution, like, the 401k. Now, if you're making a certain amount of money, like I meet you where you at. Now, if you say, okay, you save your money every time you get a paycheck, you put a certain amount of money inside your 401k, I'm the government, you work for me, man, you put $100, I match your $100 50. Now, every time you put money inside your 401k, I match it, that comment, and there's not them funds, the dump is not going to be taxed. That's non-tax funds, because as long as when you get paid, whatever go to your savings for your pension, we can match that 50%, and we encourage every employer to do it also. So now we can incentivize all the employees. Now you're offering your employee a defined contribution retirement plan. Okay, we ain't gotta charge you 17% wealth tax. We can maybe charge you 10%, 12%, because we know you helping generate a retirement fund for your employees. So this is the kind of things that we have to think about. Like, meaning you say you could put all the money inside the retirement plan for you to say, okay, well, I can make sure none of my funds non-tax, all of my funds non-taxable. We can say, okay, you only can put up to maybe 15 to 20% of your annual salary in a year. So when you put up your 15 to 20% inside your savings, then we can match that 50%. And then every year, whether it be March, April, or however they want to do it, we do the same thing. We do a tax refund. You add up all your things. We list our things we give refunds on. We list our things that we give tax credits on, and then you apply, and then just create jobs also, because now we gotta have qualified accountants and things, so we can make sure only person who can file taxes for people are Turks Islanders. So we can handle all the foreigner coming, open up a tax company and then start hiring all the foreigners to do the job. No, these don't need to be owned by Turks Islanders too. No more business. I don't think no more foreigners should own no more business here. You come and own it, you gotta be an indigenous Turks Islander, gotta have his name on that also. And you ain't got a chance for no buyout, and you ain't gonna have no clause in that contract to be like, boy, I see that, you tricked me, because I know people who get tricked for that before. I know locals who get finger push in their eye when they sign a contract where they get 51% and then in the next they get 49%, and then they have a clause inside a personal contract and be like, okay, if you won't buy out in 5 years, you ship. No, we can't go try for that. We can't do that. We gotta be smart, like, no. Whatever on this document presented to the Turks government, that's the only legal document. I don't care what type of contract you write out outside of that. You ain't gonna push no finger inside my Turks Islander. The Turks Islander can be owner in this organization, this company, for the rest of his life, unless he sell it. And the only person he can sell it to is another Turks Islander. So we can ensure that generation after generation, the only people who continue to own something are Turks Islanders. So now you can get incentivized for all that. So when I tax you, you getting something for it. You getting tax refund. So we can encourage you to do certain things. We can encourage you to have children, because now you can be like, boy, the government give me a tax refund for my children. I can have 2 street children within the next couple of years. So when I file again, I finally get 1 street grand, back from the government. Like, this is the kind of things that we have to do, because being encouraging our people who had children here. If you're a foreigner, you somebody who go America from time you're pregnant, U.S. making sure you're straight, because they got something called WIC, which is woman and infant care. So to make sure the woman eat the proper foods and all these kind of things, you got to offer these programs. But the only way we can pay for these programs is if we increase our revenue. So we can have to start increasing it by charging taxes, so we can generate funds. But we ain't just say we charging you tax and we can give you nothing. We gotta give you something back. And that's the plan for taxation. Because it ain't just about taxing. The problem is we don't give nothing back when we tax. And that's the only person who getting something back when they get taxed is the foreign lobbyists. So now we gotta create an environment where locals getting something back when they get taxed.
Okay, so from what you've said, I heard a few different kinds of taxes. So income tax for locals, as well as wealth tax for foreigners, and then we get incentives as a return of the income tax.
Yes, ma'am. And like I said, we encourage you. Like, imagine you get like going green. You know what I mean? It's like renewable energy. So imagine you get a house. We try to encourage, because if you get a house now, you're paying a mortgage. Now, for me, like, whatever the interest is for your mortgage, we can tell you it's like non-taxable. So if whatever money you make you pay on your mortgage, that's a refundable. We can give you a tax credit for that, but that credit wouldn't be refundable. You won't get no cash back for that. It can go towards your taxes when you pay, so it probably will reduce the amount of money that you'll have to pay. So we have certain things that we just get credit for, and then certain things will be refunded for. So if you get one house, and now you go say, well, you go buy some solar panels and you install some solar panels on your house. We can get the money you pay for your installation, and that money will be non-taxable. So we can encourage people to live healthy, do certain things. So we got to think about the things that we want to see and try to encourage people to do that. So you don't have to encourage them by having a conversation. You have to encourage them by giving you money for it. But it ain't gonna be physical money. It's gonna be money that you still use to go against whatever you gotta pay the government. So if we think about these things, then this can encourage people to go buy a house, because now you gotta pay tax, but your money you're paying for your interest, you don't gotta worry about that. That's refundable. The government ain't gonna charge you tax on that. When you pay your tuition, you don't gotta worry about the government taxing your tuition. Now, we can give you credit for your tuition. You got this is how we help things like to be able to do certain things. Because a lot of us say, well, okay, we expect the government to do this, the government to do that. We ask for social programs, we ask for help for our infants and our older people. But when we keep on taking from the government and not putting enough in the government, we're bound to run a deficit. So this is the kind of things we got to think about. We got to think about how we're going to generate money in order to give these things back to our citizens.
Yeah. Well, LeKensay, thank you for that answer. We've heard from you about taxation, about diversification, and lots of other topics. But before we wrap up, are there any final words that you would like to briefly leave with the public before we close?
Well, I mean, first, I'd like to thank you for having me. I appreciate that. You got me sweating. You like got me on a microscope. I mean, like I said, thank you very much to everybody out there. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Just open your eyes and your minds, because at the end of the day, we've been fooled for a long time. They don't want us to be educated because you can't control educated people. You can't control knowledgeable people. If you want to understand what's going on around you, so at the end of the day,
your connection was a bit choppy there, but knowledge is power. We can agree on that. We have one more special question to ask you though before we let you go. We would like to know, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck, and why?
I won't fight at all. We can come to a collective agreement. We can come to a collective agreement and be like, yo, what are you trying to accomplish? Maybe I can add value to you, or you can add value to me. We ain't gotta be no reason to fight.
But you think the duck?
We may be trying to accomplish the same thing, but we're going about it the wrong way, different ways. So now if we put our minds together, we come together collectively, then we can reach somewhere.
Wait, the duck
fight, man. We ain't got no time to fight. We come elevate, man. We come share knowledge and help people grow within themselves, find them true selves. That's what we trying to do. We ain't trying to force no contention. We ain't trying to do none of that. Educate the people and make the people better off. That's what it's called.
Because horses and ducks also need elevation. Yes.
Amen.
Well, again, thank you, LeKensay.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys.
I just want to say to everyone, remember to go out and vote on February 19th, whoever it may be, someone who fits your ideologies. Remember to go out and vote and keep riding this wave.
Another youth is getting shot again. If you take your eye off the door, you see the breadcrumbs. That's what Puppy did, and now we here for 2 summers. Thank God the boss case could have gone long.